And now Jan Pospisil is a Sudanese affairs analyst and associate professor on peace and conflict resolution at Coventry University in the United Kingdom. He joins me now live from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us here on TRT World. I remember talking to you about 2 days ago. At the time, I had asked you whether or not you think there would be an extension of a 72-hour ceasefire. And here we are today. It has been extended. So now that it has been extended, does that indicate there are possibilities of peace talks between the warring sides?
I mean, it's obviously very good news that this has been extended. Whereas what we see is a continuation of a low-level kind of fighting. So not everybody is adhering to it at the moment. The ceasefire goes along with a proposition of talks in the South Sudanese capital, Juba. We will see if indeed they will go there. I've spoken to Sudanese officials over the last days, and they were not really too optimistic if the Sudanese leadership is really willing to talk to Hemeti. I would not see the short-term possibility of peace talks between these two. Let's see how long the ceasefire holds, or if it is used to regroup from both sides.
Right, but then tell me, what do you think, what kind of pressure is needed to get the warring parties to turn these ceasefires into peace negotiations? What kind of role do you think the international community can play at this point?
I mean, the problem was from the beginning that there was quite a considerable pressure on both parties to come exactly to that agreement of integrating the RSF into the army before the clashes erupted. And this was essentially triggering this. So I can't see really why something that hasn't worked before now would work before one of the sides is considerably weakened to a point where they just have to give in. I think at the moment it doesn't look too optimistic, because essentially whatever agreement could there be is just the reintegration of the RSF into the army and kind of the unification of the army. And this means one of these two sides and their leadership has basically to give in.
Right. And Professor, before I let you go, according to the World Health Organization, 60% of health facilities in the country have been closed. More than 500 people have been killed. Thousands have been injured. So if this continues, what would be the long-term outlook for a country like Sudan?
I mean, it will be a nightmare. I would assume even today that the real number of casualties is much higher than these 500 people that we hear of officially. And if this is continuing, it will be catastrophic. And it will take a long time for Sudan to regroup. There was already like a severe economic crisis before this happened. And with this is going to be much worse. There is also the chance that several parts of Sudan might even break away. Hemeti made such remarks that Darfur or other parts could also be like independent. And so there is lots of implications that would hit economy and basically all the social situation really hard.
Certainly, the humanitarian situation is dire in the country. Just let me add one more question here, Professor, if I may. To what extent do you think the international community will be involved in bringing humanitarian assistance to Sudan from this point onwards? Because as I understand, the main goal of the international community right now is to evacuate foreigners from the country. So how is it going to work out going forward? Do you think the international community would be involved in bringing humanitarian aid to the country?
Yeah, this is likely. I mean, at the moment, the situation seems too volatile to start with large-scale humanitarian relief delivery, but in the end, this will have to happen. I have already heard from several large-scale organizations that they're thinking what they can do, what corridors to use to get things into the country. But I guess this is here also, I think there is a huge preparedness internationally to get involved as far as there is humanitarian corridors. And I guess the main issue here is indeed the negotiation of humanitarian corridors so that relief indeed can enter the country and also the capital, Khartoum.
All right, Professor Jan Pospisil, thank you very much for talking to us here on TRT World. As always, really appreciate your taking out the time.